Travel along, Catholic pilgrims, for 1 year as we read through St. Faustina's diary. Join me, Amy Thomas, each day for a short reading out of the diary which brought us a deeper understanding of Christ's divine mercy. Hello, Catholic pilgrims. Welcome to day 59 of our readings from St. Faustina's diary. Today's show is sponsored by My Saint, My Hero. They are a Catholic company that makes wearable blessings. So they make jewelry that displays our Catholic faith. I'm so glad that they are a company that is sponsoring this podcast because I love their products and I love that their products are ethically made by people in countries that desperately need work, by women who are putting it together and are being ethically paid. So I wholeheartedly back this company. I'm so glad that we have partnered together. So please check them out at www.mysaintmyhero.com. Okay, so today's readings are from Notebook 1, numbers 214 through 219. And when I was reading through the readings beforehand, this one little piece really stood out to me, and it brought back a flood of memories, and it really made me think back on my spiritual journey. And so that's what we're going to talk about once we're done reading. So we'll get started right now with 2:14. Everything is now ready. Tomorrow morning, we are leaving for Cracow for the retreat. Today I entered the chapel to thank the Lord for the countless graces He has bestowed on me during these 5 months. My heart was deeply touched at the thought of so many graces and so much care on the part of the superiors. My daughter, be at peace. I am taking all these matters upon myself. I will arrange all things with your superiors and with the confessor. Speak to Father Andres with the same simplicity and confidence with which you speak to me. We have come to Cracow today, April 18th, 1933. What a joy it is to find myself again where I took my first steps in the spiritual life. Dear Mother Directress Mary Joseph is ever the same cheerful and full of love of neighbor. I entered the chapel for a moment and joy filled my soul. In a flash, I recalled the whole ocean of graces that had been given me as a novice here. And today we gathered together to go for an hour's visit to the novitiate. The Mother Directress Mary Joseph gave us a short talk and outlined the program of the retreat. As she spoke these few words to us, I saw before my eyes all the good things this dear mother had done for us. I felt in my soul such profound gratitude toward her. My heart grieved at the thought that this was the last time I would be in the novitiate. Now I must battle together with Jesus, work with Jesus, suffer with Jesus, in a word, live and die with Jesus. Mother Directress will no longer be at my heels to teach me here, warn me there, or to admonish, encourage, or reproach me. I am so afraid of being on my own. Jesus, do something about this. I will always have a superior, that's true, but now a person is left more on her own. Cracow, April 21st, 1933. For the greater glory of God, the 8-day retreat before perpetual vows. I am beginning the retreat today. Jesus, my Master, guide me. Govern me according to your will. Purify my love that it may be worthy of you. Do with me as your most merciful heart desires. Jesus, there will be just the two of us during these days until the moment of our union. Keep me, Jesus, in a recollected spirit. In the evening, the Lord said to me, My daughter, let nothing frighten or disconcert you. Remain deeply at peace. Everything is in my hands. I will give you to understand everything through Father Andres. Be like a child towards him. Okay, so if you remember way back when we first started reading, she started her novitiate at Cracow, and that's the beginning of entering into the religious life. And it takes a while. She has now come back to Cracow to do the retreat before she takes her perpetual vows, or she will be a full-fledged nun sister within her order. And this is what stuck out to me when she says, what a joy it is to find myself again where I took my first steps in the spiritual life. And it really got me thinking, what if all of us could have a moment where we looked back in time at where our spiritual life started? Now, if you are a cradle Catholic, you could say, well, it started when my parents baptized me, which is true. If you're a convert to the faith, you can talk about, well, it started when, I was confirmed into the Catholic Church or something like that. But that's not really what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is when you first took those steps on your own to really embrace the Catholic faith as yours, or you were on that path. Yes, our parents give us the faith. And if you're a cradle Catholic, your parents gave you the faith, but at some point you had to accept it as your own. And wouldn't you love to just go back in time to see when that first moment started to happen? Whether it was, you took the initiative to go to Mass on your own, or you wanted to start learning more about the faith on your own, or something. Somebody questioned you, somebody asked you about the faith and you weren't quite sure, so you started researching, into the faith to learn better. Whatever it is, I just think it would be so cool to go back in time and see that path. And I think a lot of us can do that. We can think in our minds and look in hindsight and go, walk our way back to when we first started out. And I would have to say, for me, my path, and this is going to sound crazy, started the night on the football field that I told you guys all about earlier in a previous podcast. The night after being abused by 3 guys, when I went out to the football field at night on the 50-yard line and I turned my back on God. For me, that's when it fully started. And that sounds weird to have the moment when I turned my back on God to be the moment when I started on my spiritual journey. But I really think it was, because up until that point, now, God bless my mother and father. I was raised Protestant. My mother got us up for church every Sunday. She is a formidable player in my spiritual life. But I hadn't really adopted it as my own, and I had really gotten super duper lazy as a teenager in wanting to go to church, wanting to learn anything about my faith. I was super sloth-like. And so I don't know why it had to be this way, but my spiritual life started that night on the 50-yard line. And like I said, that's weird to say, but it was almost like I had to go down that far to be raised up. And I see now all the workings that God was doing in my life. I turned away from him. I tried to do it on my own, not recommending this, but I tried to do life on my own without him. I didn't go to church. I barely did anything to do with my faith. I called myself a Christian, but I most certainly did not act like one. But little by little, through that emptiness, God drew me back to him. And that's incredible. And so that led me to meeting my husband, who was a cradle Catholic, but he wasn't really living his faith either. And to us having a child out of wedlock. And now we had a baby. And what were we going to do? Neither one of us had been doing anything with our faith, but now we had a little girl who we wanted to make sure that she had faith in God. All of a sudden, it was super important. And then we had to fight over Catholicism or Protestantism, and what were we going to do? And little by little, God drew us down this path where, now our family really tries to live out our Catholic faith as much as we possibly can. And there's still more to go. It's not like we've crossed the finish line or anything like that. I'm not saying that. It's just God has brought us along on this journey. And now I am, a blogger for the Catholic faith, where I once hated it. I've gone to the Holy Land on pilgrimage. I call myself the Catholic pilgrim. It's just, God is amazing. God is absolutely amazing. So what I would say today is, think back on your spiritual life. You know, it's good to reflect on it because, like she says, I recalled the whole ocean of graces that had been given to me as a novice here. When I think back on my spiritual life, I look back to that 50-yard line, and though I did not know it, God was flooding me with graces that eventually down the line would help me. And I didn't see it. And all along the way, he was helping me. And sometimes I resisted, but sometimes I gave in, thank God. And now when I look back, I see all the graces that were there. And it's just amazing to me. So I would highly encourage you to do that. And think about the people in your life who were major players. You know, like I said, my mom, huge player. She did not, let us wiggle our way out of going to church, which let me know that it was important, even though when I was a teenager, I was like, meh, whatever. So my mom was huge. Our pastor growing up, he was such a wonderful man. He just had such a Christ-like quality about him. And then, my husband, even though he was a lukewarm Catholic, us coming together and all my questions and all my arguing forced him to defend the faith. And in that defense, it lit a fire under him. And then just the priest that came along that heard my first confession, and just on and on and on. I mean, Bishop Barron teaching me about the faith, Catholic Answers, helping me learn the faith better so that I could tell, friends of mine that had become atheists, about the faith, just on and on and on. So many graces. So something to truly be thankful and grateful for. So that's what I would encourage you to do today. Think about your spiritual life. Where did you take your first real step? And not that baptism isn't a real step, but like on your own, you made that choice. And just look back and be amazed at the graces that God has given you, and be amazed at the journey, because it is different for each one of us, but each journey is truly a blessing in and of itself. So that's all for today, Catholic Pilgrims. I will see you back here for day 60. And until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.